Hey, this is Chuck, and you are listening to Fans with Bands, the podcast where we talk to the fans and the bands they dig about life, music, and whatever the hell else we want to talk about. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Fret Rescue. Located in Southeast Michigan, Joe at Fret Rescue has over 17 years of experience as a journeyman luthier. From basic setup to major repairs and restorations, you can put your trust in Fret Rescue. Contact Fret Rescue via email at fretrescue@gmail.com. You can also find them on social media by searching for Fret Rescue, @FERTRESCUE. That's Fret Rescue. Today on Fans with Bands, we're talking to Trash Fiasco. Check it out. Hey, this is Chuck with Fans with Bands, and I'm talking to Frank from Trash Fiasco. How you doing, Frank?
Good, Chuck. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. Hey, I want to thank you guys for reaching out because I went and checked out Exist as Instructed, and I got to tell you, man, I was blown away. It was like 8 tracks of brilliance. I mean, it's punk rock, but it's also a lot more. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Just kind of all over the map on there. So anyway, thanks for being on Fans with Bands.
No, that means a lot, especially coming from you. I've listened to a bunch of your episodes in the past and seen the list of other bands you talk to, and you talk to some incredible artists. So for you to say that means a ton. So thank you.
Oh, thanks, man. So I like to, if you've listened, then I'd like to start at the beginning and how the band got started. So how did Trash Fiasco get going?
Yeah, so we were a pandemic band
All right.
in Chicago. Basically, right before the pandemic, Lucas, the drummer, and myself got together through like a Facebook communities thing.
Cool.
He's like drummer looking for something, and anyone that's tried to put a band together knows that is the hardest part. It's like, wait, there's a drummer that's free? Hold on. And so so basically we got together and just started playing a little bit. Nothing too crazy, nothing too serious. And then we added a bassist from there, and then the world shut down. So we had this self-storage unit. It was a little tin can, and we were in there for about a year, and all we did was write. There were no shows to play. There's really nothing else to do. So we just wrote and like fine-tuned our stuff. And that eventually turned into our debut album a few years back. And it allowed us to be pretty tight, in my opinion, when we finally were playing live. I think we were a lot tighter than we otherwise would have been, which kind of catapulted us forward and allowed us to, I think, release better stuff and more stuff in a shortened period of time, because we honestly just had a bunch of stuff in the bag ready to go, because we didn't have lives really for like 9 months or whatever it was. So
right.
That's really the origin. We've got Tyler now on bass, who's exceptional. He's a long time in the Chicago punk scene and just incredible at what he does. So it's the 3 of us, and we like it that way. I think it works.
Nice. And how did you guys come up with the name?
Honestly, it's kind of like lore to us, even because I'm not even sure. I think so. I was able to like go through my phone notes, and I did find like a short list of like options that we had back then.
Yeah.
So at some point we sat down and talked about it. My recollection, and again, whether it's true or not, but my recollection is I was talking to my brother, and he had a fast food job, and I was like, "Hey, how was work today?" It's like, dude, it was a trash fiasco. I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. And then I like threw it in my phone notes and didn't even think about it. And I think it just came up later. So, we were like, oh, sounds good. And just didn't. You should probably put more thought into it when you do that. But that was kind of it. And kept rolling.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the name because I think it's well, one thing is like sometimes you get a band that their name is I guess too ubiquitous, so that if you try to search for their stuff, you get all this other crap. But if you search for Trash Fiasco, it's pretty limited,
Yeah, there's there's one other YouTube video about some like public comment at a township meeting about like a trash problem that
Fiasco.
they had. That's
Right.
like the only other thing that comes up. Yeah, because we did think about that and we Googled that,
Yeah.
and it was like one
Yeah.
one public video.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when I, was first talking about the new album exists as Instructed, and I was listening to it, like I said, you definitely hear punk, but there's so many other things in there. There's kind of like that sludgy, like you got super fuzzy guitar in there sometimes, and some kind of Melvin-ish kind of things, and then you've got some really cool, like almost like rockabilly vocals on there sometimes, and then these psychedelic kind of riffs that are going on in a couple of tunes. So if somebody was coming up to you and wanted to know, like, hey, what's Trash Fiasco sound like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, only because they're a stranger and I don't know them and I don't know how this conversation is gonna go. I try to keep it really abbreviated, and I typically say garage punk. But to your point, it captures a lot, and pulls off of a lot of things, and that's more reflective of the individuals than anything.
Yeah.
Lucas he's basically my night school version of getting up to speed on like hard rock.
Oh,
Like
really?
he just like is my constant education. I'm like, dude, you don't know like so and so. Like, no, I don't. And so he brings that like harder element to it
Cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I have more blues roots, and
Okay.
so I come to it starting there, Delta blues, Muddy Waters kind of stuff, and then that led me in the trajectory of the punk garage bands that pulled from that all the way up to like the 90s 2000s Detroit scene, and even beyond that. Just I mean it's comprehensive. Like
Yeah.
everybody pulls from it to some extent, but
Right.
the ones that really dive into that are the ones I'm more familiar with, and then just a very low level introduction into jazz, which I try to pull in, but I'm honestly not good enough to leverage it fully. But yeah, that would probably tie back to the psych roots that you're talking about, some Hendrix feel, and then some modern psych, some like psychedelic porn crumpets and
Yeah.
white denim, things like that. But yeah, that I think that would be the best description. But honestly, you're describing it better than I am, so I'll probably just steal whatever you say and start using it.
Funny. So, I love the album title too. Exists as Instructed, because I feel like that's a pretty prevalent thing. But I'm curious to like, how did you guys come up with that title? What inspired it for you guys?
Yeah, it was really it's really a catch-all for the type of songwriting we do, and what I mean is like our debut album was titled Stay Miserable, and then we followed up with this Exist as Instructed, and it's really like don't let anyone tell you what to do,
Yeah.
right? And people, from our perspective, people take that and then apply it to what they want, thinking like, do what I want you to do
Yeah. Yeah.
and don't let the other person tell you what to do. But that's completely against the sentiment, right?
Right.
The whole idea is exist as instructed is these things are forced upon you in the spirit of not having things forced upon you, if that makes sense,
It
right?
does. It does.
And so the songwriting on this album and pretty much every song that we've done is the concept is you take a common emotion or experience or feeling, you assign that to a character, and then you extrapolate the repercussions to the extreme. So it's like if you feel lonely, you invent a character, you make them feel lonely, but you make them feel the loneliest a person has ever felt in the history of the world. And then you write a song from their perspective, right?
That's cool.
Um, and uh, and so if you go through the album, it's 8 songs. Off the top of my head, I don't remember how many characters, but almost 8, maybe 6, 7, or 8 different
Yeah.
characters. And their perspectives on those emotions.
That's really cool. And I think that maybe answers the question of how, because each song is very distinct. Even within songs, there's distinct, like parts and riffs, but there's a different flows in there. But you do get that perspective, and I hadn't thought about that, and that's a really cool idea. I love that concept of take a character and write it to the extreme and say, this is what this so and so does, right? That's
Yeah, and
super
if
cool.
you commit to that, the songs by necessity are different because people are different, right? So it's
Yeah,
like if you're trying to genuinely create a new person for this um narrative, this story, it's impossible. It's the same
yeah,
because it's no two people are, and so the songs won't be either.
that's awesome. Now, did you take that same approach before, or is this like a new one for this album?
No, no, we've used that in the past. Admittedly, I think I'm getting better at it than maybe the earlier stuff. Um, the earlier stuff is like it's almost so extreme that it's not relatable. Like it's okay, okay, like that would never happen, or
Right.
that's just like normal people don't find themselves in those kind of situations, or at least those extremes of those situations. So the new album, I think does a better job of uh, conveying common feelings, but also not being too clean. And what I mean is, like, if I was trying to tell you a story about what happened to me last weekend, it would be kind of like this. Like, it wouldn't be smooth, and I would just be talking, and so I would
Yeah.
have stutters, and I wouldn't say exactly what I intended to say. My word choice wouldn't be perfect, and so when someone retells a story and you're trying to do that in song, you have to do your best to imitate that.
Yeah.
And people can interpret the songs how they want, uh, but some imperfections are um, intentional. I'm not perfect, so some
Right.
imperfections are just me not being good at writing songs. But like there's those things that you try to build in as you're trying to be a real person in the song.
Cool. That's very cool. So which of those eight characters or songs are is your favorite?
Mm. Um, it's a great question. Probably One Bird
Nice.
um, would be my favorite, just because it's like the person furthest from me.
Uh-huh.
So it was most fun to put
So
myself in their
you had to
shoes.
stretch basically.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Like I'm not, at least I don't think I am. You could ask my family, but I'm not. I try not to be uh, like a flaunt it kind of person, or
Yeah.
like cocky or anything like that.
Right,
And
right.
that is the core of that character. It's like, look at me, I'm the dude, I'm the man, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one's kind of fun to sing because I think people, when we played it live, I think people think that I wrote that like as me. And so it's like, who is this
Yeah.
dude? Like what? But then I get a chuckle out of it because it's like, yeah,
Right.
it's whatever. You don't get it. It's cool.
That's awesome. Um, the song that I really liked, and I think it was more from the musicals aspect, just because I'm like kind of a closet funk fan, is Chimney Smoke. Um, it's a super cool. I mean, just really great riffs in there.
Mhm.
But can you tell me, give me some background and inspiration behind that one?
Yeah. Man, how do I say this without you thinking I'm crazy? So it's written from the perspective of an alien,
Nice.
and as you listen to it, you mentioned the funk piece. Um, there's definitely a lot of that, especially in the bass line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my inspiration, both vocally and guitars, was a lot of Hendrix in there. I actually sold it, but I had a Strat, and that's the only song on the album that I pulled that out for. And
Oh wow, cool.
use the wah pedal and the whole bit. But yeah, so the without having the lyrics up in front of me, it's really about chimney smoke is a sign of life. So like if I'm flying over something, if I see smoke, there's somebody there,
Right.
right? And so the perspective of whatever kind of being the alien is about flying over Earth and seeing or not seeing chimney smoke,
Yeah.
and then extrapolating that into there are people there or there aren't, and their interactions with those people, and what that means for them and what that means for the people that they're witnessing. And
Cool.
that's really the story. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. So, you know, part of what I also like to do is kind of get your background as far as being a musician. So, you mentioned part of the music that you were coming from, but how did you get started playing guitar and doing vocals?
I found my dad's old acoustic guitar in the attic,
Oh,
and I was probably like 14, and it was all warped and terrible, but I didn't know
yeah.
that. I just tried to play it.
I know those
Um,
first guitars. You're like, oh, fuck it, it's great.
yeah,
It's
it's like,
log.
it's so cool. Yeah, and I had some sort of like do-it-yourself DVD instruction thing that
Nice.
like my dad got me. Is like, because I think I said I want to learn to play this, and as a parent, you're probably like, well, let's see if he's serious or
Right, right.
like if he's just gonna like be done in 2 weeks. So I threw some DVD at me, and then I worked on it myself, and it was great because I just took to it and loved it, and pushed through it. And then when I did, and I played a real guitar, it was so easy because these things like the
Yeah,
spacing was so wide and the neck board was all crooked and it
right.
was horrible.
Yeah.
I still have it, but
You probably
yeah,
had some serious, awesome calluses and really good hand strength.
absolutely, yeah. And it's just you pick up like an electric, which the spacing smaller, this is an acoustic, and with a real smooth fretboard, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like so much better than I thought I was. But yeah, just to kind of make a long story short, I really then got some formal instruction in college. A guy by the name of Dan Palmer. Anyone listening should go look him up. He's in a band called Talking Ear. He is the best guitarist I've ever known personally.
Wow.
He's got um, secondary degrees specifically in jazz theory and stuff like that. And
Oh,
so
wow.
um, yeah, so he taught me for 4 years. That helped me out a lot. And then from there, I really just kind of kept coaching and teaching myself, and was in a series of bands, and that eventually brought me to Trash Fiasco.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you were in college taking those lessons from Dan, were you was that like part of college or just on the side doing? Yeah?
Yeah, it was like it was great because you need like so many credits or whatever to
Yeah, yeah.
graduate. And so every semester I'd be like +1, +2, just like keep throwing guitar in there as long as they would let me like get away with that.
That's awesome.
And there was some sort of loophole where I could just like take it for infinity and it would count. So I just kept doing it.
That's great. Was it jazz guitar or just regular guitar? Like, I mean, what the core
I
saying?
mean, I came in, there were one-on-one lessons that counted for
Oh, okay.
credits. I came
Wow,
in
that's
so
cool.
raw. Yeah, it was very cool. I
Yeah.
came in so raw though that it was just like teaching Frank what guitar is
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And by the time I graduated, we were getting into some basic jazz, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be the last person to tell you I can play jazz. I definitely can't,
Yeah.
but
Me too.
um, but yeah, he really is responsible for getting me to where I am for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I took there's a community college, not I'm in Ann Arbor, and Washtenaw Community College used to have well, I think they still do have a pretty good jazz program, but they had a jazz guitarist who is still around, Johnny Lawrence, and he taught out like intro to jazz or something. Uh,
Yeah,
it was mind-boggling to me. I just could not fathom how to do walking bass lines and those chords, and I could hear like I was really good at figuring out like if it was when you play a chord, if it's dominant, whatever. But trying to play that shit, I was just like, fuck, I suck.
yeah. No, it is like next. If you want to feel like you don't
Yeah,
like, if you feel high on your horse one day, you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, like I'm in this band and I'm great. Just like spend an hour trying to learn jazz music. It's
yeah,
like, okay, I
yeah,
don't know what music is. I don't know how this works. So
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
totally hear you.
That's funny. So, what were your influences for your music? Like, who
For me
did you?
personally,
Yeah, for you.
yeah. So
Anybody
I'm
inspire you?
yeah, I am like a dyed-in-the-wool Jack White lover.
Nice.
And that comes through. I try to restrain how much that comes through because I think like if I just let it out, I would just be like a White Stripes cover band basically. So I try to, that's going to come through so naturally because I love it so much.
Yeah.
So I try to consciously pull from other inspirations and insert those, and hopefully that dampens it a little bit. But yeah, a lot of, I grew up on classic rock with my parents. So there's a lot of that. Those being more Hendrix, like I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
really like Steely Dan, and I'd say a few others in the classic genre. But my mom is a excellent musician. She's been a singer her whole life. She's still sings.
Oh, that's cool.
Paid for funerals and weddings and all kinds of stuff like that. Um, but she's big into show tunes and some of like standards and
Yeah.
things like that. So my vocal approach, which you touched on for a second, really pulls off of some of that stuff, like Dean Martin, Elvis, Johnny Cash, kind of swinging and low at
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, there are songs where I go up in the register, and that unfortunately is just a page out of Jack White's playbook. But um, a lot of my sense of music came from her, honestly.
Cool. Very cool. So what is it about, because it's one thing to learn to play guitar and just stick around with it if you want, which is totally fine. But then there's kind of a drive that makes you want to go out and play and then play in a band. So what were the driving forces for you to want to do that?
Yeah, I'm just kind of laughing because I had this conversation yesterday with my wife. Um,
Awesome.
and it is not specifically about guitar, but it's just I don't have hobbies. Like I obsess over them until they become like conquests or something. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like I can't just play the guitar. Like I have to turn that into a band and I have to try to make that band the greatest band that's ever existed. Like that's just kind of how I operate.
That's awesome.
So for me it was kind of a no-brainer, like, oh, I want to do this. The the confidence to do it has only come recently in the last couple of years because I've been in a number of bands, last decade, I guess, and I wasn't very good. So when I started, no one is, right? That's
Right.
the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but I just think like that obsessive nature that I have pushed me through the bad stuff to the point where if I'm just being honest, I think Trash Fiasco is good, and I think we're good as a band, and that makes it easier to obsess over because I can have some pride in the
Yeah.
in the quality of what we do. So yeah, that's just me. Like if I picked up like I don't know, I picked up chess recently, and I can't stop like analyzing my score. It's like
Oh shit.
stop, like just enjoy chess.
Right.
I
Right.
can't do that.
Well, I guess it's a good thing. Well, like you said, it could be a double-edged sword, because then you're like, you can uh, go beyond where it's fun, and then it becomes like too crazy. But
Yeah.
as long as you can still work in the fun, then it's good, right? So
Yeah, and for me that comes in the live shows. Like I really like our studio product. I think it's awesome, but it's also not fun because I labor over it and I'm like
yeah,
very focused on it.
yeah,
Live, I do kind of like let it all out. And that is the fun that I associate with it, if anything. So you gotta find those outlets for even if you're gonna make something not fun by obsessing
right.
over it, you gotta find the moment in there that is and
Yeah,
relish it, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think it's probably true of anybody that's doing some kind of art, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that if you're really passionate about it, can become slightly obsessive. But on the other hand, you have to find that love for it. Otherwise, I think your art will suffer. So,
Yeah.
just my
And
two
I
cents.
to a certain extent, that's what's going to produce excellence is
Hmm.
like if you're a painter and you're just not happy with the quality of your painting, you're just going to keep working on it and making it better and better until your paintings are what you want. So it's the same thing. To kind of buffer myself, I've done periods of no music at all. I don't pick up a guitar. I
Yeah.
won't pick it up for 3 or 4 months. I just got off of one of those and it was about 3 months.
Wow, that's a long time.
So yeah, it's weird. But when I come back, I'm much, much, much better. I'm fresher and obsessive. But then then it starts to produce real
Yeah.
fruits, which is what we're doing right now. We're writing right now, and I'm coming off of
Cool.
that break, which is helpful.
Yeah, there is a weird thing, when you mentioned that when you come back, you're better. Because I've noticed that too. Is this, like, sometimes when you take a break from it, there's something that's going on in your brain that's kind of like cementing things in place, and then the next time you come back to whatever you're, passionate about, you're like, oh fuck, I'm really good at this, or I'm a fucking
Yeah,
lot better than I was.
I think that's spot on. What I've noticed in myself is it's not necessarily that I'm better technically, it's more so I'm not taking the standard approach to things or the standard angle to things.
Hmm.
Like if I was gonna write a song and I was stuck in this rut, I'd be like, all right, what's the root? And then we'll go
Yeah,
up
yeah,
and but then when I don't play for a few months and I go to something, that's weird. I just kind of did that because I'm creating a new pathway
yeah,
that I have the ability to because I'm not stuck in the rut that I was before. So
yeah.
that's what that feels like to me, I guess.
Nice. So, what would you say would be some of the albums that, or yeah, well, I'm gonna guess it's some White Stripes, but like, let's say three albums that were very influential along your musical path to where
Mm,
you're at today, from when you started.
gosh, that is really tough. So I'm gonna have to do one White Stripes just because
I figured.
you could probably pick all three. Um, that one would probably be Distill. Um, that's got Death Letter on it and Hello Operator, and that they were still really raw,
Yeah.
but a bit more put together than the debut.
Hmm.
Is kind of their artistic peak, in my opinion. Um, One from more recent that I've been pulling from a songwriting and vocal approach would be Brutalism by Idols. Um, I have come to really respect the way that frontman approaches music. It's almost as though they're not thinking about it as music, they're thinking about it as art.
Yeah.
And so you're not stuck to um, the standards or the structure of what music should be. He kind of thinks about it in totally different terms, which
So
I
more
appreciate.
like a performance then, is, or like a construction of a. Yeah, I'm having trouble thinking of like how that would be.
No, I would say that's right. It speaks to like what I love about the blues too, which is they're not trying to polish it up. They're telling you a story, and it comes
Yeah,
with the rawness of the story. Um, and Idols does it in a very different way than the blues, but they do that. If you feel it, like, and
yeah,
that's what music should be. You should feel it,
yeah,
but
for
he makes
sure.
you feel it. It's not like, oh well, there should be a harmony here, and if I'm doing this correctly, I'd probably go up an octave.
Yeah,
Just that all go. The playbook goes out the window, and he's trying to tell you something, and however that comes out in a raw way, I think that album specifically nails it.
cool.
Then I gotta come up with a third here, which is tough. Um, so goodness gracious, if I'm thinking off the top of my head, I actually have my Spotify pulled up right here on the screen. I'm gonna see what's in there, but um, I'm inclined to go with a jazz album, probably a Thelonious Monk album.
Nice.
So whatever there's a live in San Francisco, maybe like 1964 or something like that.
Okay.
But anyways, he had recently gotten out of um, basically a psych ward, and that was his first show back.
Oh
and
wow.
it's kind of like what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Again, a very extreme version of it, where he hadn't played in a long time. He didn't even practice. He like walked out and then straight to the venue because he had a show, and then just played the show. Um, but it really captures, I think, um, him in that he was very focused on melody always, but he did it with a certain level of dissonance. And in that show, he lays heavy on the melody. He pulls in from other jazz tunes. He pulls in from other artists. Plays the line in the midst of a different song, and you could just tell he's enjoying it.
That's awesome.
Which is an inspiration for me just to remember to enjoy it,
Yeah.
and just be weird and be yourself, which he was. So I appreciate it.
That's awesome. So do you have any like pre-show things you have to do before the show, pre-show rituals that something you've just got to do before you get on stage?
Yeah. Um, so if you listen to any of our songs, I have to sing in both a really low register and a really high register.
Yeah.
Especially when we put together a set list that has both, which is most of our set list. So I got to do some pretty intense vocal warm up. That starts the day before
Really?
with water.
Ah,
So I figured out that if I just drink obscene amounts of water, I can maintain the vocal strength to get through all that. I've done shows where I don't do that, and I will lose it after 3 songs. Not kidding.
really?
Like, yeah, my voice will just disappear. I don't have
Oh.
it.
Oh
So
wow.
I've gotta do the water the day before, which is weird, but I have to do it.
Yeah.
And then usually on the way to the show, I will sing standards. So I'll sing Sinatra and Dean Martin, and my family's Italian, so a lot of like the Italian classics.
Nice.
And and then I don't eat, um, if I can do it the whole day. But at worst, I'll just eat breakfast. And just there's nothing worse than trying to play a show full.
Full.
So
Yeah.
I just
It's hard to do
I,
anything full except sit down.
yeah, yeah. So I find I'm better if I'm hungry. So
Yeah.
I go up hungry and with tons of water in me and doing my vocal warm up, and then as soon as I get off stage, I am putting my order in. If I have put my order in
On
at the
stage.
venue before I've gotten on stage. Yes, like I'm walking up, can I
Right.
please get an order of wings and fries? And then when I'm done, they'll be back.
That'll be ready to
That's
go.
yeah, because I'll be starving.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But
I
that's
think
it. That's most of it.
I think the water makes a lot of sense because when you do think about it, especially yes, you do have that range. You go from some super highs and then down to that kind of cash level low, and the water that makes sense to me because I've heard singers and I'm always impressed by people that can um, one that have a range of vocals, but then also can do that on a regular basis. Because uh, you sing in the car and you try to do some kind of super high, and you can't sing. You're done, right? As soon as you
Yeah,
hit something out of your range, vocal cords say, "Sorry, you're now whispering." So,
yeah,
or you're scratching along or whatever. But that's a good point about make the water thing. That's cool.
yeah. And it sounds there's probably people listening right now. They're like, "Duh,
What the
you
fuck?
drink water." Yeah,
Yeah.
like you drink water. What's
Yeah.
so big about that?
Right.
But it is crazy amounts. Like I'm just drinking water constantly all day
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
and
You got like a
and
couple
honestly,
gallons you just carry around with you. Just got to stay
no,
hydrated,
I do
guys.
it in the most annoying way possible. I have like 60 water bottles, and it's probably terrible for the planet. I try to recycle them.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, to me, it's just I have seen it when I don't do that, and
Yeah.
it's gone. Like you're saying, like singing in the car, and that's probably how I learned how to do this is just no shame singing in the car.
Yeah.
But it just goes like I don't have it, and there's that's the worst feeling when you're 3 songs into a 9 song set, and my voice is gone. It's like,
Yeah.
goodness, I gotta get creative quick because this is not gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any where was I going to go with that? Oh, um musical pilgrimage. Is there a place that
Mm.
you would like to play with your band, and where is that, and why? And then if you could put anybody else on the bill with you, who would that be?
Oh, wow. Um, Gosh, I feel like the answer changes over time.
For
Like
sure.
when we were just getting started, it's like, oh, I'd like to play here, 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 and there. They're great venues, but they're like local Chicago venues, and we've gotten in and played those, so I feel really good about that.
Nice. So you've hit on
Um,
some already. It's good.
yeah, but like I said, they're it's relative. Like if you're asking me to pick the top one anywhere always, it's hard to not say Red Rocks just because it's so
So
unique.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's really nothing else like that.
Yeah.
There are a ton of others I'd like to hit, but that would be one of them.
Yeah.
People to put on the bill with us, active bands.
It could be anybody. This is a fantasy question, so you can go
Hey,
crazy.
that makes it way harder, man.
I know.
I think it would be really cool to be on a bill with Prime Talking Heads.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just because I
It would be a good gel, actually.
okay,
Yeah, I think that
yeah,
would be
I,
I would work well. That you
it's
two
interesting
bands.
to hear that from someone else that's not myself because I do pull vocally uh, from them for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
could hear some David Byrne in there. Yeah.
yeah, so that I feel like that would be cool, and I think if we're putting together a bill, we should try to capture like all the extremes and like do like Black Sabbath or something, you know,
Yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
like we definitely pull from them bass lines for sure,
Yeah.
and even from a drum perspective. I'm sure if Lucas were here, he would list like four bands I've never even heard of. But yeah, I think I would just try to capture the spectrum of what made us us. And then there's just like I would just throw on names that I want to see. Like I would put Hendrix on the bill. I don't know that it should, like it would should be that way, but I would
Right.
want to see it.
Right. So, have you ever met any of your musical heroes? And if so, how did that go?
Yeah. Um, so I've seen a number of them. The only one that I've met and like had a conversation with is Buddy Guy.
Oh, really? Wow.
Um, yeah, so I used to live in the South Loop of Chicago, which if there's anyone Chicagoans listening, it's just a few blocks from his bar.
Yeah.
And it's his bar in the true sense of like he might just be sitting at the bar, like drinking whiskey. And he was one night. I went in there because a guy I knew was doing an open mic and I just wanted to check it out.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I did like a quadruple take. What? What? And sure enough, Buddy Guy was just sitting at the bar listening to the open mic on like a
That's
Wednesday
awesome.
in the summer. And so I didn't want to, take over his night or,
Yeah.
be that fan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just I didn't sit next to him. I just went up to him and I was like, hey, I'm a big fan. Thanks for having this spot. And he asked me to just sit down.
Really?
And yeah, so
That's
which I was
cool.
gonna do. I was just gonna leave like three stools in between,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he's like, "I'm gonna sit down," and so I intentionally didn't talk to him that much. I didn't want to be like
Right.
annoying, but
Right.
it was cool. It was mostly just small talk, but
Yeah.
just one of
That's
those things
cool.
that like your heroes are real and you got to
Yeah.
meet one, which was pretty neat.
Yeah. That's the thing I keep coming back when I've met people that I've admired. It, it's they're regular people, right? They just happen to be made some music that really influenced you or impacted you, but they're just, they're them, right?
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
weren't
absolutely.
doing what they did, they'd be, you know, hanging out or do like we
Yeah, and
do.
I think for sure, I think part of the reason we build them up is because they're in that position because they're really good at performance art,
Right.
right? And so a lot of times, probably most of the time, what you see them as or what you've witnessed them as on stage is very different than them as a person.
Yeah.
That's true for me for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like he was similar. Like I've seen him, I don't know, three or four times, and on stage, I mean,
Yeah.
and he really hams it up. Like he gets into it, and maybe he is that way to a certain
Right.
extent. But
Right.
when I met him, he was just sitting at the bar having a drink. Like he wasn't trying to put on any shows.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So do you remember the first time that you guys played together out live? Um, how how was that, and what did you take away from that first
That's
experience?
so funny. Yeah, we played a backyard party. Um, one of Lucas's friends. It was really hot. and my car broke down on the way there.
Oh man.
And so I showed up like the minute we were supposed to play. There was so it was in the corner of a backyard. There nothing was mic'd, except there was a PA, but the PA kept going in and out. And I forgot the lyrics to at least 3 songs. And we missed our timing because we couldn't hear each other really on most of the songs. So in terms of what I pulled from it, it was pretty demoralizing, at least for me. I won't speak
Right.
for the other guys, but
Right.
I was like, gosh, I thought we were a band. Turns out we're not. And so it was definitely for like an obsessive perfectionist like myself, it was definitely like a you're not even close kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but that comes, I think, with the chaos of a live performance. Like when you're practicing, it's in a controlled environment with no variables,
For
and
sure.
like you know what to expect until you've had some time under your belt, just getting weird variables thrown at you,
Yeah.
you don't really adapt well. And I definitely didn't adapt well. Like one thing went wrong, and I was like, "This is all gonna be
Yeah. It's
terrible,"
fucked.
right? Yeah. So, which we're way, 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 way better at that now. If there's one difference in the band between then and now, it's that. It's just that the live performances are so much better and tighter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've lost cymbals in the middles of sets. We've had the sound go out. I've had my whole amp go out, and
Oh man.
you just, you learn to just roll with that
That's
and
good.
continue to make it a performance. Because at the core of it, and sorry, I'm being a little long-winded, but
No, it's good.
um, at the core of your question, like, what did I learn from that? People don't want to see their friend or their neighbor on stage. They want to see a show,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They're going there to detach from reality.
Right.
And it's my job to be that detachment. So I've got to be bigger than I've
Yeah.
got to be something that's not normal. And we've all come to embrace that to a certain extent, which makes our shows that much better. And going back to that first show, we were literally just like a friend that had a band, right? And
Right.
so well, I learned that's not what you want to be. You
Yeah.
you want to be a show. You want to be a spectacle.
Yeah. That's a good point because and I think you just touched on something that I've noticed because as soon as you said that I was thinking about bands I've seen and bands that have been impactful and bands that haven't been. And it's 9 times out of 10 when they're not impactful. There's certain genres, like punk, metal is very physical, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of get caught up in that physicality of it. And so it's easy to kind of run crazy with that, but you can also be physical, but not necessarily, I don't know, just doesn't come across as like being, um, professional. I hate to use that word, but sort of like, just you're into it for that reason. You're trying to make a point. Um, but it definitely comes across with some bands because they're just like not doing anything. It's like, they're petrified because they haven't been out there or haven't done it. And you got to
Yeah.
get past that to make it, an event, make it something.
Yeah. You
Like,
totally do. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of like, if my music is just good enough, I'll
yeah,
make it. Unfortunately, I just don't think that's true. Like you need you need to have good music, but you need to be a good performer. You need to
yeah,
put on a show. You need to create some sort of experience that people enjoy and want to go see again,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so to me, it's kind of sad, honestly, when I go to see a show and like it's so good, like their music is so good, and I know it's good,
yeah,
but they do the thing where they're like looking at the ground and like in
yeah.
between songs, like, hey, thanks. It's like I just want to grab them, like you're good, like
Yeah,
you got to know you're good, and then they'll
right,
come across, and people will feel that you're good.
right.
And I'm not saying that because I'm perfect at it. Like, it definitely took me a long time to like realize this, but
Yeah.
once you just stop caring, it makes that part a lot easier.
Oh man, it's awesome. So, when you're listening to music, how do you like to enjoy music? Is it, um, well, one, do you prefer a particular type or I guess not type, but presentation? So, do you like to stream versus physical, Do you like to like sit in your car versus just chilling at home? What's the ideal situation for you to listen?
That's a good question. I kind of think it depends on what kind of music you're listening to.
True.
Um, Most loud, fast stuff, even stuff tangentially loud and fast, I feel like is best driving in a car, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, Driving fast, preferably. Um, the Midwest state governments probably know that about me, but yeah, loud music, windows down, driving fast is maybe my favorite. I would say I do have some vinyl, and more of the folk, jazz, blues stuff. I
Hmm.
feel like is better on vinyl in the evening, dim lighting, cocktail kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Hanging out.
That would be probably the best way to go. And I don't want to say unfortunately, but I think like most people, the majority of what I listen to is streaming.
Yep.
Though I've been trying to put together more vinyl as of late. The issue with vinyl um, is everyone in the area near you is subject to it, right?
Right.
So it's like
Right.
if you live with somebody and
Yeah.
you go to put on an OC's record, like, well, I don't know that you know what this is all about, but you're about to find out. So
That's
you can
right.
do it,
Right.
but maybe not as frequently as you'd like.
Yeah. There's times when I put on a record and my wife will like close the door, or close her door because she's like, "Oh, Jesus." It's because she just is not into metal at all.
Yeah.
So if I throw some metal on, she's like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
did
that
try the headphones things for a little bit, but sometimes, I mean, headphones are great sometimes, but other times you're just like, I just want to be free to do, because typically I'm working on something. I just want it roaring in the background or something. But
yeah, and I think the headphones thing speaks to like what are you trying, what is the music for at that
yeah,
moment,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if I like have people over and we're hanging out, like the music, it's not background noise, but it's more like atmosphere for like
yeah,
whatever we're doing.
right.
If I am like, oh, I have not I've never heard this Keith Jarrett album. I really want to hear what he's doing.
Right.
I'll probably go headphones and I'll probably turn it up really loud. And I'll probably look weird, but I'll probably close my eyes and like really try to put together like what was he doing?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. To be with the music in an
Yeah,
intense way.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, Frank, I want to thank you so much for being on Fans with Bands. I've got one last question for you.
Sure.
Pineapple or no pineapple on pizza?
Oh no, no, no pineapple. Chuck, I can't even believe you asked me that question. Yeah, so I am Chicago suburbs guy through and through, and so um, the the myth is that we're like deep dish people. It's
Yeah.
not true. Tourists are deep dish people. We are tavern style, which is thin crust with square pieces,
Oh, nice.
and that is just as much meat as you can put on it. Is really what I'm looking for, to be
Awesome.
honest with you. It's certainly not any pineapple, I'll tell you.
Got any like a favorite combination of toppings you like?
I would tip, like I said, I'm kind of like a
Meat?
meat guy, so I would go probably pepperoni and sausage, but I wouldn't blink at a pepper or maybe a little bit of onion. I could
Yeah.
even get weird with the meats, like a Canadian bacon or a
Oh
ham,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm pretty straightforward. Just give me
Awesome.
the pepperoni sausage. That'll get the job done.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I'm with you. The pineapple should come nowhere near the pizza. Nowhere
So
near.
happy to hear that.
Yeah, yeah,
That does
no.
my heart so well.
That's a travesty. There's something wrong. I mean, I try not to judge others, when they say they love pineapple. I'm like, all right, whatever, but that is just not for me.
That's okay. I'll judge for you, Chuck. Those people, they're terrible. They're terrible humans. I don't know what they're thinking. They really need to have
Uh,
priorities in life.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, Frank, thanks again for being on Fans with Bands.
No, I'm so happy to have been here. I appreciate you having us on.
All right, man. Talk to you later. Many thanks to Frank from Trash Fiasco for joining me on this episode of Fans with Bands. I had an outstanding chat with Frank about his band Trash Fiasco and their excellent new album, Exist as Instructed. Their music is wild, woolly, and crazy-ass punk music, with influences that span many genres. Definitely check out Trash Fiasco, as they are a unique and intriguing band. Stay tuned to their website and socials for the latest news. See the show notes for all the details and links. Bands are nothing without you, the fans. Purchasing music and merchandise is critical to their survival. If you can help out your favorite bands, please do. If you're in Michigan, consider following the Playing in Detroit area tonight and SE for Southeast Michigan Music Facebook pages. They are fantastic places for fans and bands to support each other and share our combined love of music. Thank you all so much for listening. Be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite podcast service to get each and every episode of Fans with Bands. Spread the word by rating the show, telling your friends, telling your neighbors, telling your family, telling your priest, tell everyone, and leave a comment. We want to hear what you think. You can keep in touch by following us on social media. This is a Life in Michigan production. Until next time, be well and kick out the jam.